Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead of them and their companies. I'm your host, Olivia Salmons, and in each episode we'll uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Christy Cox, founder of Vari Scales. Christy works with founders and leadership teams to bring order to chaos, helping them design operational systems, processes, and structure that supports growth instead of slowing it down. Christy, welcome to Founders Future. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Olivia. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and I'm very much excited to dive in and learn more about your journey. So, with all of my guests, I do actually like to start at the beginning. So if you don't mind briefly taking me back to what it was you was doing before you started up Vari Scale, and then from there, what was the motivation behind it?
So I've been an entrepreneur now for over a decade, and I've worked with founders in some capacity for about 15 years. So way back when I started in finance, and when the market crashed in 2009, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I always say I was an accountant by trade, and I found myself competing a lot with like CFOs for like accounts payable positions. So there was a local entrepreneur I moved back then in North Carolina, and there's a local entrepreneur who needed some help like with his books and just in general. He started a business in his garage and grew it to multiple seven figures. So I onboarded with him, and it was my introduction into entrepreneurship, and it was a huge learning curve. It's like, I always tell people, the best thing you can ever do is go work for an entrepreneur who's growing really quickly, because you'll have to wear all the hats and you get like the best education ever. But I worked with him for several years and then started my own accounting and advisory business, and that grew really quickly. I actually had a second opportunity fall in my lap in 2017 and took that and started another business with my husband. We sold that one in 2023. It was a huge global company, and it was just a little more than we wanted. And so we took the time to focus on what we really wanted to build in our lives. And so we were operating that all through the pandemic, and it was a lot of roller coaster rides, a lot of different things that happened. I actually took I took an outside job as well, because it was just a lot for us to manage, like having all of our eggs in one basket. And after a span of that and selling that business, I just knew I wanted to get back into what it was I really loved, and that was helping other founders build the businesses that they wanted to grow and scale, and help them to navigate and avoid all the mistakes I made in the past to get to where I was before, so that they can make their journey a little bit easier. So that was, how Vari Scales started.
I love that. And so when you got the itch to be an entrepreneur, you just went on and was a serial entrepreneur. You learned that skill and really applied it everywhere, which is so cool. And now obviously helping people do that same thing as well. How did you find that initial jump to entrepreneurship when it happened?
A lot. I would say it was harder than I thought it was going to be. Even though I was already working with an entrepreneur, by the time I had come on board with him, he was doing about $1 million in revenue. So I wasn't there for that first part of his journey to get it to that point. And so I think that first stage of doing the marketing and doing sales and all of that was really difficult. Although in 2015, if you hung a digital shingle out, people did show up, where that's a lot different now than it was back then.
It's a very noisy world now, especially like marketing yourself as an entrepreneur. You have to be a content creator. Like, it's a very different hat that they're wearing these days. But let's dive into Vari Scales a little bit more. So walk me through, like, at this point who would you say is your ideal client? Who do you very much love to work with the most? And then from there, how does it help people and how do you support them?
Yeah, who I most enjoy working with are people who actually want to grow and scale their businesses. So they probably already found a little bit of success, and they're maybe around the six figures or even a little higher in revenue, but they are really now like wanting to scale. They need to step into the CEO role, get out of doing, I call it the doer of all the things. Like, you can't be in that position anymore. I primarily focus on service-based businesses, but I do have a background in e-com. So anybody that's operating in that world is who I focus on.
Love it. And just with the ambition to keep growing. I suppose that's got to be a key thing, right? That they want to partake and want to move forward. That's always a helping process. And then what does that process look like? So how is it you go in there? I'm assuming you get stuck in the trenches a little bit, but walk me through what it's like to work with you.
Yeah, I have a couple of different options to work with me. So I do have a full-blown integrator, fractional COO option, where I do come and embed myself a little bit into your business, and I work directly with you. And if you have a team, work it with your team to really get them up and going. And then I also have another option where I support you as, I call it CEO foundations, where I support you in getting clear in those things that the skills that you need to develop as a CEO, like in goal setting and how to achieve the goals and team leadership. That's a huge one that I really focus on because it's not, if you've never led a team before or if you've never been a founder, it's a really difficult skill to know how to navigate. So those are my primary two options that I have available, just depending on what they need, what my clients need.
I love that. So very custom to them and what they're looking for. And as you say, like leadership, if you've not, and a lot of founders, like we mentioned with marketing and sales, like when you're in those first initial stages and then when you scale, that seems to be like their next thing they just haven't learned. And it's not to blame them. It's such a hard skill to have, managing a team and being that leader that everyone looks up to. What would you say is the first initial challenge or issue that clients tend to come to you with? What's that first initial spark that brings them your way?
Usually it is that transition out of like they're doing everything and they know they can't keep doing that. Sometimes it shows up as they either tried to hire a VA, a virtual assistant in the past, and that it didn't work out. Like they came to this place where they were still trying to do all the work because the other person wasn't doing it in the way that they wanted to, or they felt like it was a waste of money. Sometimes it just shows up as I don't know exactly why my business is a mess, but I know it's a mess and things aren't going the way I wanted it to. So they can't produce the revenue they want to get to the place to hire the skilled person. So it's usually one of those two things that shows up for them.
Awesome. So a little bit of just, as you say, getting out of the weeds and the trenches themselves and taking it to that next level. I am intrigued though how to go about acquiring your customers. So like in terms of like marketing for yourself, like what channels, what methods are you really finding most effective at the moment in finding that right person to work with?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I think that's one of the areas I struggled with in starting Vari Scale. I think most of the people that I find, truthfully, are usually in person in some capacity because a lot of people, when they get to this stage, it's hard for them to be online in a lot of places. But I would say the other place that the majority of the people I find are from LinkedIn or YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel. So those are the two places that they find me and then end up, they might not get in touch with me, but they end up signing up for something so that I can have access to them at some
Yeah.
point.
So that's a kind of, do they come into your ecosystem online and then from there it's how do we get them on board? But I'm assuming referrals and stuff when you're talking about in face, it's always nice having those two avenues, very like personal on the front end and obviously online just to bring in that consistency. Have you ever run ads before with yourself and gone that route down it?
I have run them on occasion. I would say that it's not where my focus has been, but it is probably something I'll focus on more in the future as I want to grow and scale my own business. Yeah.
Yeah, getting yourself. And then also, are you still a solopreneur at the moment, or do you have a team that are helping out on the back end just to alleviate some of your roles as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I have a small team, and it's something I actually started from the very beginning because I knew I didn't want to be in that place. In my first business, I did get stuck in that place where I couldn't hire experience. I didn't have the cash flow to do that, and I didn't have the time to train anyone to bring them into my world at that point. So it was a place I knew I didn't want to be. And through past experiences, I'd had access to offshore talent and knew
Mm.
how to really have that be an effective way to cost effectively grow my business. And so that was something I started from the beginning. And it's something that I help a lot of my clients do too.
Yeah, they're so good, and it is, as I say, it's a great cost-effective way. But even just like time management as a founder, like it just alleviates so many of those little jobs that you don't have to do. Even utilizing AI at the moment is a great way to kind of combat that same hole that founders find themselves in and get another stuff out of that. So obviously we're at the start of 2026. So I'm keen to know what your plans are for the future and moving forward with the company. So like when you think of the next 6 to 12 months, what is that vision for you? What is the goal that you're working towards for the next year?
Yeah, I will say that lead gen and having that flywheel operational is one of the things that I am really focused on so that I don't have to lean into that area too heavily myself anymore going
Yeah.
forward into the future because I do really want this. I think by the end of the year, if we're talking just in sheer numbers, like I would like to be at 500,000 or above in revenue. I'm not there yet right now. So that is something that I would like to go to by the end of the year.
I love that. And I think, yeah, knuckling that leads will really help you get there. Where you, is that where you're finding like the biggest challenge for yourself at the moment is just bringing those people in the door to help scale?
Yeah, I think that's probably my biggest constraint.
The visibility using
Yeah.
online. How do you cope with like when you, again, because marketing has changed so much, right, since you must have started out yourself. How did you find that initial like content creating, like digital marketing aspect? Is that something that you still constantly working on and learning?
Yes. In the beginning, it was pretty difficult. I think the most difficult part was honing in on my message and then now understanding what the market reacts to because that does look a lot different. And so I think it's been a really long journey to understand like how to create that emotional connection and with people on the other side. And it's still something, it's not something that comes natural to me. So it's something I still have to focus on at least weekly. I'm in something trying to like make sure my message is really clear on what it is I do and who I'm trying to reach.
Yeah, really, as you say, like a lot of it as well, it's like hitting those pain points, which people find uncomfortable because they don't want to draw sales from pain. But it's just like talking to a stranger. That's how you have to grab their attention sometimes. But like, obviously, you help companies scale. So, what would you say is the best piece of advice you ever received about scaling a business?
Yeah, I think the best piece I've ever about the best piece of advice I've ever received about business in general, I would say, is to focus on the outcomes that you want to create. Everything is driven by an outcome. I'm not sure I always understood the application of it, but more and more is like I'm back in my own business. It's really true everywhere. If you want to hire someone, you need to focus on the outcome you want to create within that role and that function in your business. If you want to build your business, what's the outcome that you're trying to create? It's not, it can't just be revenue based. You have to actually like, oh, I want to personally make this much money. I want to build my business to do this thing and serve these people in this way. So I think it's just, again, I didn't always understand the application, but I think it's the best thing I've ever, best one thing I've ever focused on.
You one thing you've ever applied once you could apply it.
Yeah.
I love it though. It's a very good for any listeners out there. That's such a great tip moving forward. And I have one final question to ask you, Christy, before we log out. So, if you could go back in time to a younger self and you could only leave yourself with one piece of advice moving forward, something you know now but that you didn't know then, what would you say to yourself?
I would say just move and never think about what other people think. So I think it's really difficult. It's difficult when you're older, and it's also really difficult when you're younger. And so I wish that my younger, maybe teens and 20 something year old self just knew that then.
Yeah, I love it. And Kirsty, thank you so much for joining. Christy, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your incredible journey and insight with us. Where can our listeners reach out best to work with you or connect with you if they would like to do?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm actually on all the platforms, but I'm on LinkedIn probably the most. And then obviously through email, which is Christy, CHRISTY at farscale.ai.
Beautiful. And thank you again for joining us. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go and check out Christy and drop her a message. And do not forget to subscribe to Founders Future by wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you are a business owner, specifically a coach, consultant, or agency owner, and you're really looking to scale your business and you want to enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to hop on a call with one of our team and discover how we went from zero to $30 million per year in less than 3 years. But until then, keep on climbing, and we will see you on the next one.